Well, awesome. I'm here with Coach Tyler Storer. Coach, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah. Well, I follow you on Instagram and I think that's kind of where we first connected. And if you guys aren't following Coach, definitely do so. It's got some awesome content, awesome story. I'm excited to get into it. But before we do that, do you remember where it all started? That very first time that you jumped into goal?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I just made a video about it so when I was growing up, my family, we lived in Maryland in Ocean City on the Eastern Shore. And if you know anything about Ocean City, it is a beach town, not a kid town during the regular non-beach season. So we got shipped out to school in Salisbury, Maryland. And a lot of people probably know Salisbury, lacrosse, pretty big deal. Mm-hmm. And my brother, who was not a sports fan at all, for whatever reason, thought lacrosse was cool. So we went out and got some fiddlesticks, and that's what we did every day. There was no other kids in Ocean City. Like, all the kids we went to school with all lived like a half hour plus away. So all we did was play lacrosse back and forth all the time. And then we moved to California, mm-hmm. Sacramento. And this is like early 90s. Right. So lacrosse was like a foreign thing. So again, we just played lacrosse, and then we moved to Florida, and they were starting a team in our town. And at the time, like, private schools, were the only places that had lacrosse at the time. And so my brother was like, we're going to go out, we're going to, try out for this team. And so we did. And they got a good amount of numbers that came out that were excited to give this new sport a try. Because other than my brother and I, and like maybe 2 or 3 other like transplants from New York, everybody was like a Florida Pop Warner football kid at the time, and that were just excited to hit somebody with a stick. Like, that was like the big draw.
Right.
And so the numbers were good enough that they're like, all right, let's give this a go. And I was pretty good at catching and throwing. We had done it for years. That's all we did. And I had dreams of being a scoring attackman, but when it came to like all the details of that, I just struggled to grasp them. And so one day they said, well, if we're going to make a team that's going to compete in the next year, we're really going to need to figure out a goalie. And like I said, I played like a dozen different sports at the time: ice hockey, street hockey, and I was a goalie in hockey and street hockey. And so I was like, well, I'm a goalie in street hockey, so I guess I could give it a try, because it seems easier than all the other positions. Just stop the ball. Right. There's no like, okay, do you understand what a 3-2-1 is versus a 2-2-2? Hey, do you understand a coma slide? I didn't understand any of that. But the idea of, okay, I just got to stop the ball. All right, easy enough. My ADHD allowed me to understand, just get in front of this thing. But unbeknownst to me at the time, the padding situation was very different. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll be the goalie. So the next time I show up, I start walking out there with all my different street hockey pads, thinking it's got to be similar. And they're like, oh yeah, you don't need all that. Hang on, we'll give you the stick. And I was like, oh, okay, this is different. But that was it, man. They never let me out after that.
That's awesome. That's an awesome story. Yeah, I remember first time I played goalie, they give you the chest pad, and they give you, I was just wearing, this is 1999. So I'm just wearing field gloves. Like the companies hadn't come out with the lacrosse goalie gloves yet. And that's it. You're like, where's the rest of this padding? Like, what? That's awesome. What was it?
It's funny. Speaking of the glove, I remember I was at a camp one year. I think it was probably about like 97, Bill Pilot goalie school, maybe, or another goalie camp. And Bill Day, legend goalie Bill Day, was a brine rep at the time.
Yeah.
And so he's showing off some of the new products. And one of them was this little thing. It looked like a star, and it was like made out of foam, and you were supposed to warm it up. And then you folded the tip over your thumb and folded the sides around your thumb and put that in your glove. And that was like, ooh, like they were out there showing like all this other cool stuff, but it was a goalie camp. So all the goalies were like, oh yeah, forget all that other stuff. This thumb thing, this looks legit. Like I had already broke my thumb at least 2 times by then.
Yeah.
So.
I broke mine in a Thanksgiving camp. Like a 10-year-old or 11-year-old kid did it. And like, I jumped into goal, and, like the kid catches one right on the crease, and like, he is not going for precision. He's going for power, and just shoots it like as hard as he can. And I'm like right there, and it just bent my thumb the wrong way. And I didn't have any like goalie gloves. So it hit, like, basically just hit the meat,
Yeah.
And it was one of the more painful things I've experienced as a goalie.
Yeah, definitely. I think the last time I broke my thumb, I went to like a walk-in clinic, and they put the x-ray up. And then by this time I'd broken it several times. And the guy at the walk-in clinic's like, yeah, I'm not qualified to handle this. He's like, you need to go see like an orthopedist. So I go to the ER, they do a new x-ray, they look at it, and the orthopedic goes, yeah, I'm not qualified to handle this. You need to see a hand surgeon. And when I finally make it to the hand surgeon, he takes one look at it. He's like, whatever you've done to this, man, the damage is done.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man. That reminds me of when I broke this, my ring finger on my right hand. And like, I ended up it was the same story where I went to all these different doctors, and they're like, this is so damaged, I can't do anything. And I finally ended up getting a great doctor. He's like the hand doctor for the Raiders and the Warriors. And like, he did this surgery where he took a little bit of bone out of my wrist and like rebuilt this knuckle. And so at least like I've got something now. Like, it still doesn't like bend all the way, but at least like it's usable.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's injuries.
I mean,
right?
well, that's what that guy said. He said pretty much, if it was new or the first time, he's like, I'd probably, try to do something for you. He's like,
yeah,
he's like, I could tell this isn't the first injury for this thumb. So I was like,
yeah,
definitely not.
That's funny.
So,
what was it about the lacrosse goalie position, do you think, that attracted you so much?
I love a challenge, man. Yeah. And everybody always made it, seem like you were crazy to do it. That it was just this hard thing, or, that you had to be a little bit off to be willing to stand in front of a lacrosse ball. And so that was like one of those things for me. It's like, well, then I'll be the guy to do it. Like that's always who I was, I like that challenge. And I just kind of, I liked being that guy on the field that everybody looked to, mm-hmm. Without having to be the guy that, I hate when like somebody decides that I should be a leader. I prefer to just do it. And that was the one thing I loved about being a goalie. You could change. I always had that feeling like, even though it's the loneliest position in all of team sports. That's what I tell my goalies. I'm like, you have to be prepared mentally for that. It's rare that we'll get the credit we deserve, and we're easy scapegoat, but there are the moments, where you can make that big save that could be the game changer, that just gets everybody fired up and back in the game, or, being the goalie, getting when your team is down, to still be the one that's poised to say, guys, we got this. Mm-hmm. I'll make the next save. Don't worry. And I'll make the next save, and I'll make the next save. Just keep doing your job on offense. Like, and we got this. We're going to, turn it around. Like, I always just like that. I like that challenge. And I liked being able to be the guy that was the calm during the storm. And, and it's just fun. I mean, I used to, a bruise here, a bruise there. I tell people, hey, look, that's a save right there. That one on my leg, that's a save right there.
Yeah.
So
there's nothing better than the feeling of making a save. Just, oh man, it's just, like nice, clean save. Those are better than the bruise saves, but hey, the bruise saves are still pretty good as well.
That's right.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it is a challenge, right? And it's such a, worthwhile endeavor, like what you go through as a lacrosse goalie, and the skills that you learn, and like who you need to become to not even just be like great, but just to be like, the team leader, and like be a okay goalie. It's just such a worthwhile endeavor. And I hope everyone, is listening to this, who's thinking about it, just goes through it, because you're going to learn so much, and I'm sure you have as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. You know, you learn a lot of life lessons in that goal.
you certainly do. Yeah, it's an interesting comment too about like being, the loneliest position, and a lot of kids email me and like that's their concern. Like, I'm over here working, I see the rest of the team, doing their drill, I'm doing my drill. And that's what we sign up for as goalies. That's our time. Like, being on goalie island's a real thing, but it's nothing to be like sad about. Like, that's where we get better, right? And because it is a specialty position and you've got to train it as such. So interesting. What do you think those other sports? I mean, you played a lot of lacrosse in terms of just throwing around. I'm sure that helped with the stick skills. But how about those other sports that you played? Did that sort of translate, do you think, into your goalie game?
I joked with somebody recently. They said that part of the reason they got into lacrosse was baseball was boring, and I said, you know what, I can relate. I was a baseball player, but you know what, I was a third baseman, and I never had a coach get on me because I didn't get down and get in front of the ball on like a hard hit line drive. You see the guys do this. Yeah. They reach out. They don't want to get their body behind it. And I was a good third baseman because I got down. I got in front of the line drive. I wasn't afraid to, have one maybe pop up, hit me in the body, pick it up. So some of those things definitely translated when I decided to become a lacrosse goalie. And then with hockey, just, same thing, being a street hockey goalie, some hand-eye coordination in there. And then ice hockey, I was actually a forward. At one time I had quite a number of goals. And I think at least for that, having a little bit of perspective of shooting and thinking like a shooter, can help you as a goalie. I tell all my goalies, there's a big part of the game that's right here. One, the mental toughness, but two, start to understand what a shooter can and can't do, or understand how a shooter might think, because that'll help you, know what they might do when they're coming down. And that'll really play to you doing better. I always, my men's team now likes to joke, because one, I like to show up very close to game time. I get a weird nerves going on before games, and the longer that I'm at the field beforehand, the worse it gets.
Interesting.
So for me, it's better to just show up with not too much time, just enough to get a little bit in, and then just jump right in. And then until I get scored on or make a save, it's either or. I'm like a nervous wreck inside the goal. Like my stomach is just bubbling. I'm like half shaking. Yeah. And people are always like, wait, until you get scored on or make a save? Like, shouldn't it be make a save? Because then I'm like, nope, it's either one. Because then my brain just goes into like, oh, okay, I got this. Or when I get scored on, it's like, okay, that's the worst thing that's going to happen today. I'm going to give up a goal, and that's okay. So, you know what? I at least now I know where that guy shoots. Yeah. He likes to shoot, so it kind of settles me down and just makes me realize like, hey, that's the worst thing that's going to happen. And goalies, I think, we're hard on ourselves sometimes. Like, we want to be perfect, but it's just, it's not realistic. We're going to let in goals. I tell my goalies, you could do everything right and still get scored on. The odds are, against us for the most part. So even just getting scored on settles me in. And then I start to think. So, usually about the second quarter, when I'm really starting to come alive, my team's usually like, all right, Tyler's good now. He's dialed. Yeah. And that's, some of that's the thinking game, and kind of seeing, oh, okay, that guy, he's feeling it today. I can tell, like when he's coming to the goal, chances are he's coming to the goal because he's feeling hot today, and maybe other times he's more of a feeder, but today he's feeling it. He's taking like 2 or 3 shots. So when I see him coming down, I'm not thinking feed this time. I'm waiting for that shot, or, you start to think about the guy behind. You can see how he plays to know like, this guy, he's a feeder, so I'm thinking in my head, I'm waiting, so that I can see it and just, follow it over the right shoulder, jump, turn, and be ready for that shot. And so I'm a very thinking, goalie.
Love it.
And I teach my kids that, you got to start to think.
Yeah. I'm just envisioning in my head, your team's warming up 10 minutes before the game. Like, hey, where's Tyler? Just come ripping in there, take a couple warm-up shots, get warm. You're like, we're good to go, guys.
That's literally it. The first year or two that I played, they used to call my wife, not even me. They'd call my wife and be like, you guys are coming, right?
Yeah. That's funny.
Now they all know.
Yeah.
Now they all know.
It's interesting what you said though, about giving up. Cause you're right. I've heard, and as when I played, I was that same way where like, I wasn't quite into the game, or relaxed, I guess would be a better word to use, until I made that save, or until I got a touch. But you giving up a goal as well. So that's interesting, because I know a lot of goalies are like that. So, use both of those as your trigger mechanism to, get comfortable, get relaxed into the game. Love it. And then you mentioned you went to Bill Pilot camp. How did you go? Was that kind of how you went about learning the goalie position, or were there other coaches, other goalie mentors that you sort of learned from?
So I'll be honest, I was blessed that a guy, Don Goldstein, happened to move to Florida around the time that I was playing lacrosse. And if you don't know Don, Don was a goalie at UMass. In fact, until Sal Licasio showed up at UMass, he had the best goals against average at UMass, and just an absolute phenomenal goalie, but also an even better goalie teacher. And he happened to be here in South Florida at the time that I was coming up through the ranks. So I had one of, the best goalie coaches I think you could imagine. I mean, to this day, he's still, involved in training goalies. And, he brings the Florida Youth Lacrosse Foundation does a clinic every winter for super amazing deal. And he gets, Sean Cork and Coach Cork from the Cannons and several other, big time goalies. We had Angie Beeson at this last one. And so I had him right here in town and every week, but I was just a sponge, and I just wanted to be a good, I wanted to be a great goalie. So I took any opportunity that I could to get training, to get reps. And actually Bill Pilot's first camps in Florida happened when I was in high school. And he's been doing it ever since. So like 96, I think, was the first year that Bill Pilot brought the goalie school to Florida. Wow. And so I went 96 and 97, and then 98 as a freshman in college at Limestone. I started at Limestone, playing Limestone. My goalie coach there came down to the Florida camp to coach, and he's like, "Oh, you live in Florida?" I'm like, "Yeah, I went to Bill Pilot's camp too. Maybe you can get me on the coaching staff." And he did. And so I coached those camps with Bill for years. And I mentioned Sean Cork. I've known Coach Cork since I was 16, because I went out to the camps in Springfield and got goalie training with him as well. And so I just, any person that was a goalie, any opportunity to go to any kind of goalie camp or training, if my parents had the means to send me, I was all for going, just because, because you realize, I think most goalies realize that the average coach, they may have watched a few goalies in their day, scored on a few goalies in their day, played defense in front of a few goalies in their day, but it's just different having someone who's played the position teaching you and training you. And, back then, like I said, I was fortunate to have someone like Don Goldstein on a regular basis. But when he wasn't there, I could see the difference. You know, my training wasn't training. It was stand in front of the goal and get ripped on, and, you know, that kind of thing. And so I felt it was important to go and get that, you know, goalie specific training, where the guys that were teaching me were guys that had been through what I was going through. So like their thoughts were around making me better, not looking cool, you know, sticking the upper 90 on me.
Yeah. There's also something to be said about just being around that many goalies. You know, it's such a specialty position. Like when are you around 15 other goalies, even maybe on your practice team? Like you got another goalie, maybe 2 other goalies, maybe 3 max, right?
Yeah.
But just being around like that many like-minded folks and seeing like the way that these other kids make saves, or seeing the way that like they attack this particular type of shot, in addition to all that coaching, right? Like that coaching is amazing, but these are just also benefits of, you know, attending even a one-day camp, but let alone like a couple day camp. So highly recommend.
Yeah, no, I do as well. I mean, I tell my goalies, I'm like, go to as many other goalie things as possible. And they're like, well, what if they tell me something different than you? I'm like, then give it a try and see what you like, you know, and come back. And if you like something that you learn better, then, you know, we'll start training you toward that, unless it's, you know, grossly wrong.
Yeah.
Or if it, you know, or as long as it works for you, like my style is my style, you know, and I'm going to teach you mostly my style, but I want you to be able to see other goalies' styles, be coached by other goalies that maybe have a different opinion of a certain thing, so that you can become your own goalie, you know, because that's it. We all have our own unique things about us. And so I tell my goalies, man, go watch as many goalies as you can, go train with as many other people as you can. That's, you know, fine by me.
Yeah. I tell you what, Tyler, you and I mean, if there's one philosophy that like embodies Lax Goalie Rat, it's what you just said right there. And that's part of the reason I do these podcasts, is because I love just talking about different things with different goalies. And like you said, you know, there's rarely is something really wrong, unless like you're just non-athletic. Like if someone puts you in like a position that's just not conducive to like movement and explosion, then that's wrong. Right. I'll be fine saying that, but there's all these different variations that you got to try out and find what works for you. And it somewhat irritates me when coaches come out and just say like, no, this is the way that you do that. Talking about a particular, you know, where you hold your hands, or talking about the width of your stance. Like there's a lot of variation. Different things are going to work for different goalies.
Yeah. Especially with, you know, like I tell my goalies, I'm like, you know, a shorter, stocky kid is definitely going to play different than a tall, you know, takes up the whole goal, you know, string bean kind of kid that, you know, like you have to find your style within who you are too, physically.
100%. I mean, you got guys like Matt DeLuca, Scotty Rogers.
I was just thinking, you know, Matt DeLuca. I mean, the guy can put his foot on the pipe and his other foot is at the middle of the goal, or almost the other one. So
no, he's leg to leg, like on, you know, on covering the pipes. And I wish I could play like that, but no way.
I can't. That's right. I trained with him some over this past summer. He was living here in Florida, so we would go take shots together, and we have some similarities in how we play, but there's definitely some differences because I'm 5'8".
Yeah, same.
So,
yeah. And so we got to, like, you know, at that height, like you can't sit back in the goal. Sometimes you got to come out and attack. Yeah, it's just different styles. But all the goalies like DeLuca that you mentioned, Sean Quirk, Angie Benson, like I've had them all on the podcast. They presented at my goalie summits and they're just amazing. They're just amazing. And so I encourage all the youth to reach out and get coaching from those folks or guidance. I mean, everyone's willing to help.
Definitely.
As are you, I'm sure. It sounds like you're working with a good group of goalies. What are you doing coaching wise these days?
So one, I train, you know, a fair amount of goalies in the area, which Coach T lacrosse all kind of happened. It kind of happened on accident. For me, I think it was this thing where I feel like I am the man that I am today, and not just coach, player, whatever. I'm the man that I am today because of the great coaches that I had growing up, and we built relationships. Like I still have a relationship with all of my high school goalies, my college coach, my high school coaches, my college coaches, because they built relationships. And so, once upon a time, I started a Facebook group, and that was mostly just to try to find a different way to maybe connect with kids that maybe I had the opportunities to coach. It's kind of like, I'll share things. They can see my journey. They could share things to, right there. And it's definitely turned into more. But I train a lot of goalies. I coach with True Lacrosse here in Florida. Also, True Empire, which is the local part of True with Doug Shanahan. It's a great midfielder back in his day. You may have heard of him. But and then I coach the state team, all the goalies, and then I'm a junior high coach at a school here called American Heritage. And
nice.
And then just anytime I coach my kids' rec team, the Land Sharks, the Lauderdale Land Sharks, which is great. And so pretty much any opportunity I find to coach, I'm jumping on it. I coach here, there, everywhere. And, I'll, if another high school has a goalie that needs some help, hey, I'll come over and coach them up. And then anytime there's, camps or clinics in the area, I love to, let people know, like, hey, you need an extra goalie to come out and help. And I just, any opportunity I have to coach, I'm looking for it. I love it.
Love it. Yeah. I also had that relationship with a lot of my high school coaches, and my dad coached a lot of my youth teams, kind of like you're doing as well. Like he didn't know that much about soccer or baseball. He was very athletic, but like he was out there, learning and coaching and just putting in the time, putting in the effort and the time. And I love that. Let me know when you do those camps. I'll definitely send it out to my audience and see,
Okay.
Yeah. People can,
for sure.
Yeah. People are interested. Yeah, that's awesome. So what, let's say you're working with a young kid for the very first time, like what, young ball of clay, how do you sculpt them into a great goalie? What's your approach on that?
For me, like I said, it's about building the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, to me, is the biggest part, because I'm trying to get them to basically buy in to trusting me when they may be struggling with learning how to do something, or especially sometimes when I get a goalie that has been a goalie but never really been coached on being a goalie. So they have developed sometimes bad habits. Yeah. I love someone when they're like, I've never played goalie. I'm like, awesome, because then you have no bad habits, and we can kind of just go from there. But sometimes, some that have been a goalie, they just, gotten a coach that says, hey, hold your stick this way, or, step at the ball, or just get in front of it. Or I've heard their philosophy is throw the ball at the kid as hard as you can if he doesn't flinch. And I'm like, that, oh gosh. But, sometimes they develop bad habits, but they kind of work, or they'll still make saves. So I when I'm with my goalie sometimes, and I try to say, okay, that was great, but I really want you to focus on, doing this. Like, don't turn this way when you go to the off hip, because you're opening your body up. And they'll say, but I made the save. And I'm like, I understand. So it's like building the relationship to get them to believe you, to get them to have that buy-in, that trust with you, to know that, okay, there might be a better way. So maybe I'm doing it right now, but maybe if I do it the better way, or a way that makes more sense, I'll make more saves in the long run. So that's, I guess, the biggest thing that I try to do with my young goalies is just build the relationship with them.
How do you do that? How do you do that? Is that sharing your story? Is that, how, if there's a dad that's working with the goalies, is like, yeah, all right, build the relationship. Step one, I'm on. Yeah. Like, how do you do that?
Take an interest in them. take an interest in them, not just in that moment that they're there for an hour with you in the goal. You know, if they have a birthday, you know, I know that birthday, and whether it's making them, you know, I like to take pictures, do graphic design stuff, whether it's taking a good picture that I've gotten of them at some time and making it to a cool background, like a little poster for them. Or, you know, I was one year I'd gone out to BYU. I had gone out to Utah, so I stopped by BYU, and Coach Schneck now, he you know, gave me a box, you know, full of stuff, you know, shirts and socks and shorts, that, you know, oh, hey, I give them a BYU shirt, or, you know, just for their birthday, just little things like that. When's their birthday? What's, you know, what do they like to do when they're not playing lacrosse, and get to know them, so that they don't feel like the only reason I'm there is to, you know, make a paycheck while I'm coaching them in the goal. Like, that's, yes, I do, but it's more than that. I want to know about them. Like, I want to know what they're struggling with. You know, I want to know how they're doing in school. So we can talk about it. If you know, hey, oh, you know, you struggle with school. I struggled with school, but you know what? If you want to play lacrosse at the next level, you got to figure that school stuff out, because that's what those schools are going to look for. So that we, you know, so that's it. Like, take an interest in them, and who they really are as a person, and not just a goalie, because sometimes that can also really teach you how to coach them up. You know, sometimes, you know, if a kid puts a lot of stress on themselves, or comes from different angles in their life, like, I'm the last guy that wants to then take goalie training and make it one more serious, super serious moment for them. And so a goalie like that, you know, will probably play, I'll find a way to make almost everything a game, you know, so they feel like, oh, just out here having fun with playing goalie, you know, having a good time with Coach T. And, you know, some I know they're super thinking type goalies, or, and I've gotten that by getting to know them. I know that they analyze everything, you know, they're a straight A student, and it's because they want to know the answers to everything. And so goalie like that, when I am explaining something, I'm going to break it down. I'm going to say, this is why we want to do it this way, or that this is why I like to do it this way. It's because it's what makes sense, you know. And if I really go through that with them, then it's, oh, okay, like, now their brain, instead of just being told, you know, hey, if you know, stay square to the ball, you're big, you keep your mass in front of the ball, versus because they're doing this move, you know, and they're making themselves little. If I can explain, like, hey, look, go like this. Now look back at the goal. You see how much is open? Now, you know, be square. Oh, look, you're big. Oh, okay, coach. Yeah, I see what you're talking about. There is more goal and less goal, and they're a thinker. So it makes sense for them, you know? And then, like I said, you know, the kid that maybe just puts so much pressure on them, or has a lot of pressure coming from other areas, you know, when we are out there, it's like, all right, we're going to do, you know, this game, it's, you know, all it is a warm-up, but I call it lacrosse cricket, and I shot in every position, you know, kind of like cricket with darts. You're throwing for the, you know, 2019. So it's kind of my version of that, but it's, you know, we're going to see who gets to the, you know, that spot fast, meaning you make 3 saves. Hey, you win that spot. If I get 3 goals, and, you know, so then they just get into it. They're having fun. They feel.
I like that. So it's like a little competitive game that you're playing against them. That's awesome. And great point about getting to know them. Right? There's that expression, like, they got to know that you care before they care about what you know. So
I've never heard that, but I like that.
Yeah. Thank you. I didn't make it up. I wish I did. That's what coaching is all about, right? Like, stealing from the great coaching minds. I don't know if I've had one single original idea in this entire time I've been playing lacrosse, but You mentioned drills. Let's talk a little bit about drills. Are there other like cool drills that you always like to incorporate into your training?
I'll be honest. I do. I can't think of anything in particular. I have certain drills, that I like, and sometimes it's just to break it up and it's for fun. But I will say, I always tell everyone, being a goalie is like being a pitcher. At the end of the day, you just need reps.
Yeah.
And so, I like to do one drill, with the tennis racket and the tennis balls, just to kind of have them learn to see the ball coming off real quick. When a guy's got it in his stick, you can kind of make some judgments of where it might go. So there's drills like that I like to do. I like to, sometimes use cones to where they are going down to the cone and getting down. But I like to just get them in the goal, get reps, and then, tweak little things. Because that's, like I said, you don't watch a pitcher. They don't like do a whole bunch of drills. They get in with their pitching coach. They throw the ball, and then their pitching coach says, okay, I notice, that your wrist is doing this or your foot isn't doing this. So for me, I like to really just get the reps in and make the tweaks. But I do love the tennis ball drill.
Yeah, me too.
With the tennis racket. I like to throw. I like one drill I like to do with the cones. I throw cones at them to just get their quick, reaction. I like to, one that I always do, though, is drop your stick, get in your stance, throwing the ball at every position.
Yeah.
And I like that one because I like to tell my goalies that, it's about moving your feet. You got to get moving in the goal, whether it's, lateral or whether it's on a diagonal. It doesn't matter. You have to get your feet moving because ultimately, there are going to be times where our stick is not going to get there as fast as our feet.
Yep.
My left shin, I remember playing a game against Colorado State. Of all the teams, right? Those guys love to talk trash, man. Back in the day, their fans were even better at it. So of all the games, of all the teams where I had to play them at home, and they and nothing against it, but we came from a different era, shin guards. Who wore shin guards? Now I say, goalies wear shin guards. I'm like, good for you. I had to wear a shin guard because I had been hit in the left leg so many times that my leg was like green.
Right.
And the trainers were afraid I was getting compartment syndrome. So they're like, if you want to play, you got to put this on. And it's because my feet moved to the ball. And, from being a righty to getting to my left side, down, off stick low. That's the furthest my stick has to travel. Sometimes, my feet get there faster than my hands. So I love really that drill. If, drop your stick, see that you can make saves with, you want your body behind it, because at the end of the day, if you make that little misjudgment with the stick, if you're getting your feet going, you'll get a piece. And,
love it.
That's why I use a lot of tennis balls too when I shoot on my goalies. I say, because that's one thing I laugh about. When parents are like, oh, I would get hit by that ball and it's crazy. And I'm like, listen, understand this. It's not that goalies are really that crazy. It's that most coaches are crazy that don't know goalies. They're crazy to put a goalie in a practice shooting drill where he sees 200 shots in 30 minutes. Because if he got hit by 10% of them in the body, that's getting hit in the body 20 times.
Yeah.
I don't want to get hit in the body 20 times, but in a game, I take 20, I see 20, 30, 40 shots at most. If I get hit by 10%, it's what, 10, 1 to 4 in the body. I can recover from that. It's not
right. And you got your adrenaline going. So you you don't even feel it.
Exactly. So I like to,
tennis
I
balls.
tell my goalies,
100
tennis balls
agree.
all day. Because all I tell them is I want them to learn how to make mechanically sound saves first. Because when it comes game time, and, you know, we'll just say, you know, you make an amazing save, but it's a rebound, and then someone picks it up out of the air, throws it across, and you dive across the goal and make it amazing. You can't train for that, and you don't need to.
Right.
Like your brain will kick in. Your goalie just, hey, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get in front of the ball. That kicks in automatically. But if you develop poor mechanics, if you're not mechanically sound, that muscle memory is never going to change if you don't train it to change. So I tell, you know, when I hate it when people, you know, coaches, you know, see a goalie flinch, you know, after they got hit by a ball, and they're like, oh, he's scared of a ball, must not be a goalie. And I'm like, use your brain. If you touch fire, you don't leave your hand there. Right. You touch fire, you go, ooh, that hurts, because your brain's job is to protect you from harm. So when a kid that is, you know, a newer goalie especially doesn't have a ton of muscle memory, hasn't spent hours training those mechanics, takes a ripper off the shin or the arm, of course he's going to flinch on the next shot.
Right.
Not because he's scared of the ball, because his brain is doing his job. And so I tell my goalies, the only way to override that reaction is by, you know, hours, practice being a mechanically sound goalie. Yeah. You know, and that's so I use a lot of tennis balls because it's easier to get them to get moving at the ball, to get behind it, to be mechanically sound. When every time a ball does hit them in the body, it's not like the worst thing in the world.
Yeah. And it doesn't take the wind. I call it like takes the wind out of your sails when you get hit with a shot. Like you could be having a great training session and then you take one on the shin or in the thigh, and you just like, you don't want to be there anymore. You're like, oh man, like I was having a lot of fun, and now it's painful. And so now next time he winds up for a shot, now all of a sudden my head, like I'm associating that wind up with that pain, and it just gets worse. Yeah. I remember there was a coach who, college coach who worked with the goalies, but he was not a goalie himself. And he was kind of demoing some drills. And there was this one drill where he had like just a bunch of balls scattered in front of the crease. And like he would come in, scoop one up and shoot, come back, scoop one up and shoot, scoop one up and shoot. And it was a good drill to like, you know, just get a lot of reps in close. The shooter could not throw a fake. So it was just about reading that shooter, but he was doing it with lacrosse balls. And like, while watching the drill, I saw goalies take like 5 or 6, you know, off the legs. And I'm like, I can tell you're not a goalie. And he's like, why? And I'm like, you got to use tennis balls in this drill, because, you know, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter that using a lacrosse ball, like the goalies are just getting beat up. And if this drill truly is for the goalie, then use tennis balls. So you and I share that quite a bit, share that philosophy. I want to talk about BYU. So, I played at Cal, 99 through 2003. We were talking before we hit record here. We had some Cal BYU big rivals, back in the day, probably still are. How did you end up at BYU?
So I went to Limestone my freshman year, and played there. And then I'm LDS. So, you know, I would have liked to have gone to BYU my freshman year. I got to know Coach Lamb when I was like probably like a sophomore or junior in high school. I think it was a junior. He was in Orlando for the big lacrosse convention. Mm-hmm. And I think my dad ran into him at like the airport or something. He had this BYU lacrosse shirt on. My dad used to travel a ton, and my dad said, "Oh, my son plays lacrosse." And Coach Lamb was like, "Oh, really? You know, what position?" He's like, "A goalie." And immediately Coach Lamb was like, let me get your phone number. You know? Yeah. So one of the years he came out here for that, went and met him, and I didn't have the grades to get in at the time. So I went to Limestone. I had a great time there. And then I served my mission for the church for 2 years. And when I got back from that, I was able to with at Limestone, with the level of structure, I actually got my grades way up. Nice. And so I was able to get into BYU. So and that was I had never thought of going to BYU, even though it was LDS growing up. It just I met Coach Lamb and fell in love with him as a person. Just thought he was awesome. Just seemed seemed like the guy that I wanted to play for.
Yeah.
And so, and you know, following it back then, the club league, I saw like, oh, hey, they're good. Like, you know, and
they're
so
really
it was,
good.
great experience there, you know, and good enough. You know, we always got in some great tournaments in the fall and had opportunities to play, you know, teams at every level. You know, that was that thing that was cool. I mean, one year we played Herkimer, which was, you know, we played Herkimer, we played Essex, both, you know, JUCO national champions.
Yeah.
We played RIT. So, you know, they just won their first national championship. I'm like, we played them to an overtime game one year. I had a great game against them. We played Whittier.
Yeah, we used to play Whittier. Yep.
So I played the one and only game where we ever beat them. Actually, it was probably my best game ever. I remember it was, but we played Taos and we played some, you know, lots of teams, which was great. You know, we really got to experience not just great competition within the MCLA with you know, teams like Berkeley and UCSB and CSU and CU, all those great teams. You know, some Florida teams, you know, they're getting there at the time, but you know, not only did we get that great competition within the MCLA, but we also got to play a lot of great teams, a lot of great lacrosse. So
yeah, I just released a podcast episode with Matt Corazon, the goalie from Florida, who I know you know as well.
yeah,
MCLA is a great option. It's a really great option for a lot of goalies out there who want, you know, who want that college lacrosse experience, but at the same time, you know, want to not have it be like the only thing that you're able to do. Like a lot of D1 athletes, like they're, you know, it's school, eat, lacrosse, pretty much, you know.
I mean, look, that was Limestone.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, back, you know, and that was back when I played there. You know, they now have, I think, what is it, 4 or 5 national titles. I missed them. You know, I was there 1 year too early. They got their first one in 2000. I won we won the conference championship when I was there. But I mean, that was, you know, you know, my lacrosse coach sat down and helped me make my school schedule, because he's like, we're going to make this so that you get good grades. Like, no, you're not taking biology and chemistry at the same time. He's like, you kill yourself, you know, but we had mandatory study hall, you know, my workout time was at 7 a.m. and I ate breakfast with the team. I went to some classes and it was, you know, right to goalie practice. You know, and I was a freshman, so we were always the last guys off the field. You know, by the time we got to the cafeteria, they were taking us into the back saying, you know, hey, we saved these for you. And then from there, it was like right to study hall, you know, and so it did, you know, and that's, you know, it was good for me at the time. I needed the structure, you know, with my ADHD, just and just I'm a little bit, you know, scattered at times. So it worked. It worked great for me. That's not for everybody. And then just I tell kids all the time, man, like, look at the whole picture, you know, look at the whole picture when it comes to where you might play, and understand that, like, it being the, you know, D1 guy may not be for you.
Sure.
And maybe it's because you picked it up later and you're just not there at a skill level, but maybe not. Maybe it's just because that's not the life, you know, for you. I coached a young man here. He wasn't a goalie, you know, and he's at Florida with Matt, actually. That was an amazing attackman here in Florida. He holds records. But you know, he, for reasons of academics and what he wanted to do in his life, you know, he's playing at Florida, and that's, you know, because that's what fit his lifestyle, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
That, you know, he was able to see that and realize, like, yeah, you know, maybe I could go to some of these other places, but, you know, they just don't fit what I'm looking to do long term. And that's, I tell, you know, people, it's, remember, this is you know, college is 4 years that help with the rest of your life. So make sure you make it an overall decision. And you know, And that's a great thing about lacrosse. I mean, how many other sports have such an organized extramural situation going on like, lacrosse does? I mean, the MCLA is amazingly well organized with the national tournament and the breakdown of the conferences and the games. And a lot of those teams, they still take it pretty, dang serious. Like
of course.
They're out there to win,
Yeah. That's how we did it at Cal. I mean, I'm sure you did it
right?
at BYU. Like we're practicing every day, it's like, they're hard. Our coach was All-American, Coach Joe Proud, All-American attackman at Duke under Pressler. And like, he ran that style of practice. Like it was very hard. And he ran us, it was really tough, and we got after it, and it's very competitive. So love it. I just, do you know Coach Marty Ward? I know he went to Limestone.
I do. I know Coach Ward.
Yeah. I was kind of putting the dots together there.
Yeah. We've worked together a little bit, not a ton, but done some camps together and know each other from around the way. So
yeah.
Yeah, he's just up at Florida Southerns, doing great things up there. Great things up there.
Yeah, I wanted to dig into your story a little bit more. You mentioned, having the ADHD. How do I guess, like, if a kid out there, has ADHD, young goalie, like what are your tips for them in terms when it comes to succeeding in the crease in the game of lacrosse?
Organize everything. Organize everything. A cluttered desk for me means cluttered thoughts. So if when I sit down now that with my business video and photography, when I sit down to edit, if I got stuff all over my desk or where I'm at, then my brain is cluttered. And if my schedule is just, if I'm not putting things in priority and getting them done step by step, my brain is cluttered. So, for me, it was, okay, and this is what I had to do in high school, when I get home from school, I have to do my homework right away. Because I know that I have to get that done so that I have the time to go get ready for practice. And if I'm at practice, but that homework is not done, even though I'm not a fan of homework, I'll be thinking about it. And I'll be thinking about all the undone things that are sitting, waiting for me, instead of focusing on being at practice. And so I say, you really got to organize yourself. And that's hard for someone like that, but it's, you really have to take those things into account so that you can be present when you need to be present for the various things that you're trying to be present for, if that makes sense.
Does make sense.
I tell them, don't, if life is cluttered, your brain is going to be cluttered. And if all the things that you need to get done aren't being done or planned for, then your brain will be all over thinking about all of it. If you kind of have your plan in place. So even if training is right after, let's say you get out of school, you want to go right to a training. Well, then know that, your plan is, when I get home, I'm going to be able to do my schoolwork or do this other activity that I want to do, and then have it in an order and in a plan and structured, so that then it's like, I don't need to think about that stuff right now. Yeah. I'm here with coach. I'm here to work on being a goalie. I got my plan. I got my schedule so that I can get everything else done that I need to. So smart. I mean, that's great advice for people who don't have ADHD for that matter, right? Like, just know thyself, like, and know that if my desk is messy, like, I'm not going to work well. If I'm not doing this, then I'm not going to do this well. Great point there. But then also the other point of, like, be present in the moment of what you're doing, right? And if that means that you need to get your schoolwork done before practice, so you're not thinking about it during practice, great. If that means you practice and that you're going to get it done after, so you don't have to worry about it during, great. I love that. Love that. Great advice. So you also, I've kind of follow you on Instagram. You also battled some mental demons. A lot of goalies do, a lot of people do. I wonder if you could kind of share that story with us. Absolutely. So, I went to BYU, like I said, and we were good. We played in the Final Four a few times while I was in the goal. But I ended up having to have shoulder surgery going into what would have been my senior year. And healing up just right in the fall. And then right before the Best of the West tournament, I'm sure you probably remember that, I got in a car accident, and, uninsured driver, suspended license. Someone shouldn't have even been on the road, but hit me in a way that completely just everything they just fixed just completely washed away. So I went from thinking that I had this one more opportunity to try to win a national championship at the time. And was it Lacrosse Magazine, the little BYU blurb in there, Tyler Storer, returning All-American. He's leading the Cougars to the national championship this year, like the return. And, so there was some press around, the team and me being a part of that. And it was just like a lifelong goal. And it got taken away from me. I felt like, cause I never played that last season. I was going to play for the Team USA West in Osaka in those games. And they cut my spot because the doctors wouldn't guarantee I would be cleared in time to play. Just a lot there, a lot of things that just, they hurt, man. I was always the happiest kid you could imagine. And these big things for me, they were big deal. Any kid that lost a season due to COVID, I can relate. Gosh, that pain, because that's how it was painful at the time. And obviously now in hindsight, I realize life is about, bigger things, but that doesn't change the moment. And it just sent me into a real bad depression, a real dark depression. And because of, multiple surgeries and things like that, it also led to access to pain medication. And not knowing how to deal with those feelings, that didn't help. But then two, it's this thing of we're tough guys, especially goalies. We don't ask for help. We don't tell people how we're feeling. Like people say, oh, you had a great career, now maybe you just go be a great coach. And oh yeah, you got it. You're right. Smile and play off that. Like inside, I wanted to be like, yeah, that sounds great, but I'm still freaking dying inside, FYI, And so it's something you didn't talk about. And so instead of talking about it, instead of reaching out to anybody to tell them how I was really feeling, I turned to the pain pills too, to self-medicate, because they're called pain pills for a reason. They take away pain, not just physically. And so that was around 2005, and I spent the next decade, man, battling substance abuse and real major depression, anxiety, in and out of institutions, rehab, psych ward. I just, because again, for a long time, I didn't reach out for help. And by the time I did, I was so deep into it. It was that much harder to get out of. But, thankfully, for me, again, 2014, December 1st, 2014, is my date, clean date from substances. Great. But being able to stop self-medicating and then start to talk about how I was feeling with the depression, has made all the difference in the world, and I was so depressed at one point, I didn't even want to be around the game, and I mean, it's, I got clean. I started to talk about my, what I was going through and why, and by doing that, by being able to talk about it, I was able to be around the game again, and so about 2015, 16ish, started coaching again, and then started playing again, and now my life is completely back revolving around lacrosse, and it is it's called the medicine game.
Yeah.
And because it heals, in so many ways. Just being able to get out and play. But now, my teammates, my men's teams they're some of my biggest, supports when I need. And then, kids that I work with, just seeing one of them get it, like it just does things for you, or just feeling like if I ever struggled with that stuff again, and didn't handle it, what would that, I think about what would it do to some of them, to find out, Coach T wasn't around anymore for any of, for reasons that were avoidable.
Yeah.
If, I would have maybe spoke out, asked for help. So I definitely a big advocate of, letting people know it's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to ask for help. I know, Coach Brad Gigliotti, a good friend of mine. I used to coach the Michigan camps with him. We were big rivals teams there. BYU Michigan was always a great rivalry, but there was something that connected us, and he started the Goalies Matter initiative. I love it. Big part of it. But
well, thank you for sharing that, Coach T. That's awesome. You look healthy, you look happy. It's great to see you, on the other side, and congratulations for going through that. Goalies Matter, I think it's goaliesmatter.org. Is that?
Yes.
I think that's the website. I'll link up to that when it comes out. Highly recommend you check that out. I mean, it's kind of helping, kids that were in your situation where, especially as goalies, and especially as men, like, we are taught to everything's okay. Like, at least this is how I grew up. Like my dad was in the military. So like, maybe this is my experience, but like you do, when someone asks you how things are going, like the answer is I'm fine. Right. Like, even if things are not fine, like you are not going to share that. And that, for a lot of kids eats them up inside. And so you need someone to talk to. And that's all right. That's what Goalie Matters is all about. That's what Coach T is here for. That's what I'm here for. Who did you reach out to? Like, what was your process for that? Like, who were some of the folks that helped you kind of get that off your chest?
Fortunately for me, probably unfortunate for her, my wife had to spend a few years going through all of that with me. But she was a big one. I'm sure that she had 1,000 friends tell her I was no good and to move on. But she never did. My parents, my coaches, one of the first, my coaches, my friends from teams, first intervention of any kind I kind of ever had, it was, because of teammates, a couple of my high school teammates, they just knew something was off. So they reached out to one of my coaches at the time that I was coaching with. And, next thing I knew, I was on the phone with all my coaches.
Yeah. Awesome.
Talking to me about it, asking me what they could do to help and being there for me. And so that definitely helped. And then, I have had, professional help as well, and nothing wrong with getting that. I like to make sure people understand that sometimes it's not just as simple as having your teammates or your coach or somebody like that, trying to build you back up. It's not always those things help. Thankfully I had those supportive people in my life that when I did start to talk about it, they were there for me. But for somebody really battling certain demons, when it comes to mental health or substance abuse issues, like sometimes professional help is necessary. And so I tell people, don't be afraid to do that. But to get to that point, you have to have somebody in your life that you trust to say, I need that help, and that's, and that, that for me, that was, my wife, my parents, people that I knew through the game, that I was able to put the trust in to say, I'm not doing well. I need help. Right. So that's, and that, that's, like I said, to me, it starts with relationships and building them with players. And because, I'm open about it. And and there's been a few people that have said, hey, maybe you shouldn't talk about some of that stuff so openly. And I'm like, I can't not, because I know there will come a day when the relationship's there, that, I'll have someone that will feel comfortable. And I've had parents, come to me about kids. I've had kids come to me about, having, just struggles in general, little things, but because they know, Coach T wasn't always, this fine, upstanding gentleman. He's had his struggles. He's had his moments of being down and out, but that's okay. So.
Yep. Love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. That's awesome. Inspirational. It's goaliesmatter.net. I should have known that.
Is it .net?
.net. You're covering the net. Get it?
That's right.
Awesome. Coach T, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story. It's been tons of fun talking lacrosse with you. I saw you applied for a PLL position there. Good luck with that. Is that?
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
I'm excited. Listen, I've always been into, photography and, doing video editing and all that stuff. And, the start of COVID, my wife lost her job. I got furloughed and we started, taking the cameras out to the lacrosse field. And that's, kind of, largely, Coach T lacrosse now, is all that came of that. And, I just love connecting with people through lacrosse, and they had a job open that seemed like it might be a good fit. So
let's do it. Let's go. Let's go. I'm rooting
give it a
for
shot.
You. I'm rooting
you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So
that's right. That's right. Awesome.
Take them, because I'll stop most of them. But
there you go. Where should people, if they want to learn a little bit more about you and see kind of some of your stuff, where should they go?
Coach T lacrosse on Instagram is the biggest one, and or Facebook or TikTok. I'm on all of them. Just but Coach T lacrosse. I share my story on there as much as I do stuff about being goalie and just lacrosse in general. Yep. So
definitely give that a follow. It's Coach _T lacrosse. Yeah.
Yes.
I'll link up when it comes out. Coach, if you're going to leave the kids out there with one final piece of advice, what would that be?
Do what you love, man. Do the things in life that you love. I've lost a few goalies that decided they didn't want to be goalies. And I said, if you don't love it, then I'm okay. Go find what you love, find the things that you love, find the people that you love, and be around those things, do those things, be around those people. And so that's it. Do what you love.
Love it. Coach T, thank you so much.
Thanks, man. Have a good one, Damon.